A library is the only honest institution left. Everything in it is exactly what it claims to be. I used to believe that about my marriage, too. The thermal paper is still warm when I fold it, slick at the edges, cooling fast. The clinic's plastic chair has left a crease in the back of my slacks, and the receptionist behind the frosted glass hasn't looked up once, which is a mercy. I read the result twice. Then I do the arithmetic. Vivian's conference circuit: Portland, Seattle, Denver. 14 days, 3 cities. The exposure window on a result like this: 6 to 8 weeks minimum. I map the timeline the way I map archival provenance, backwards from the known date, testing each stop against the record. Portland was 4 days, she said. I have her itinerary email, forwarded to me because I handle the travel insurance. Portland was 3 days. The math doesn't close. I put the paper in my breast pocket. I walk to my car. I do not sit in the parking lot and fall apart, because falling apart requires a kind of surprise I don't have anymore. What I have is a very specific feeling in my jaw, the kind that comes from holding something shut for longer than it should stay shut. I drive home. Vivian is on the kitchen island when I come in. Phone face up, scrolling. She's wearing the cashmere robe I gave her 2 Christmases ago, and there's a glass of Sancerre sweating onto the marble she specifically chose, because it shows nothing. She doesn't look up. I set my keys on the hook by the door. I take off my coat. I hang it on the second hook, the one I always use. How many days was the Portland leg? I ask. The scrolling stops. 3. Why? Your email said 4. The email was wrong. She picks up the wine. Why are you asking about Portland? I look at the counter where her phone is resting. The screen lights up twice. A preview flashes before the lock kicks in. The contact name is a single letter. T, not a name. A habit. The habit of a person who knows the full name is the problem. Long day, I say. She's scrolling again. I go upstairs. I change out of my work clothes. I fold the thermal paper and put it inside the copy of The Name of the Rose on my nightstand because Vivian has never opened it and never will. Then I go back downstairs and make myself a cup of coffee I don't drink, and I sit at the kitchen table and I think. Here's the thing about being a research archivist for 22 years. You learn to read absence as clearly as presence. The gap in the record is the record. What's missing tells you more than what's there. And what's missing from the last 14 months of my marriage is a lot. I don't sleep. Around midnight, I go to my car, which is still in the driveway, and I open my laptop on the steering wheel. The shared iCloud family account, my password, my email, established when we got the family plan 4 years ago. Vivian never changed the login because Vivian has never once thought I would look. I look. Her photo roll loads in 40 seconds. 41 hotel room selfies. 14 months. I count them twice because I am a man who counts things twice. A man in 9 of the photos. Face cropped in every one, careful, practiced. But the left forearm appears in 3 of them. A tattoo, a stylized compass rose, the kind that gym culture men get when they want to signal something about direction and purpose. I zoom in on the 3rd photo until the pixels soften. The tattoo sits just below the elbow crease. I close the laptop. I sit in the car for a moment. The driveway is very long. Vivian insisted on the length when we bought the house. Said it made the property feel established. Right now, it just feels like runway. I take out my phone. I text her, I need you to tell me where you actually were the week of the 14th. I watch the 3 dots appear. They appear fast, which means she's already holding the phone. Her reply takes 40 seconds. I have my own life, and it doesn't always include you. I read it once. I type, from now on, it doesn't include me at all. Her panic calls start before I reach the end of the street. The phone rings 4 times, 6, 8. I turn left onto Meridian Way, and the gate closes behind me in the rear view, and I don't answer. I drive to the library lot. I sit in the dark. I am not grieving. I want to be clear about that, to myself at least. What I feel is the specific, clarifying cold of a man who has just located the primary source. The grief is there somewhere, in the same way a storm is somewhere. You can feel the pressure drop, the change in the air. But right now, I am not in the storm. I am in the eye, and the eye is very quiet and very useful. I open the laptop again. I start a new folder. I call it The Record. The click of the laptop closing, when I finally do close it, sounds like a verdict. I'm back inside at 2 a.m. The kitchen is dark. I'm about to go upstairs when I hear a sound from the counter. Not a sound, exactly. A weight. Sutton is standing in the kitchen doorway in his socks, and he's holding something. He walks to the table and sets it down, face down in front of me. A phone. Not Vivian's regular phone. Smaller, older model, no case. A burner. Found in the kitchen drawer, Sutton's expression says, because Sutton doesn't need to say things out loud. He's 16 and he has my eyes, and he has been watching this house the way I watch archives, carefully without announcing it. He goes back upstairs without a word. I stare at the phone on the table. The weight of it is wrong. Too heavy for what it is, like the thermal paper in my breast pocket, which has gone cold now against my chest. Two honest institutions, side by side. Neither one is lying to me. That's more than I can say for the woman asleep upstairs. I don't touch the burner yet. I call Nolan Pruitt instead because it's 2 in the morning, and Nolan is the only person I know who would answer at 2 in the morning without making it about himself. I need you in the morning, I say. Bring your forensic hat, not your golf one. A pause, I can hear him sitting up in bed. How bad? I don't know yet. That's the problem. 7:30? 7:30. I hang up. I put the burner in my coat pocket. I go to bed and I lie on my side of the mattress, and I listen to Vivian breathe in the dark, and I think about the 41 photographs and the letter T and the compass rose tattoo, and I think, she believes she married a librarian. She didn't. She married a research archivist. There's a difference. One catalogs what's there, the other finds what was meant to stay buried. Nolan Pruitt's office is on the 4th floor of Crestline Tower, which is the kind of building that announces its own importance through the quality of its elevator music. He has a glass desk and 3 monitors and the particular stillness of a man who has spent 20 years finding money that other people hid. He's already got coffee waiting when I come in. He reads the folder I've brought. The iCloud screenshots, the itinerary discrepancy, the timeline I drafted at the kitchen table at 3 a.m., and he doesn't say anything until he's read it twice. Then he starts pulling threads. 48 hours. That's all it takes Nolan to find what Vivian assumed was invisible. A joint business account, never disclosed to me, opened 18 months ago at a branch across town. Transfers totaling $34,000 to a personal LLC registered to one Tanner Weston. A gym contract, Apex Performance, on the east side, listing Vivian Ashford as a silent backer. Nolan sets the printout on the glass desk and turns it to face me. She didn't just sleep with him, Deck. She funded him. I look at the number, 34,000. I look at the transfer dates. I look at the LLC registration date, 16 months ago, 2 months before the first hotel selfie. 41 hotel receipts, I say. 14 months, $34,000. I say it the way I catalog a damaged volume, factual without drama, noting the extent of the deterioration. Nolan is quiet for a moment, then, how do you want to proceed? So here's the thing, Vivian never knew about me. She knew I was a research archivist at the county library. She knew I drove a sensible car and wore sensible shoes and came home at 6:15 most nights and read dense, unremarkable books in bed. She knew I was, in her word, steady. She used it as a compliment the first 3 years and as an insult the last 5. What she didn't know, what she never thought to ask about, was the 12 years before the library. I open my laptop. I show Nolan my federal document clearance badge. Still active because, once you have it, they don't really take it back. I show him my Army Reserve Service record. 8 years, intelligence support, document analysis, and field research. I show him 3 case citations where my archival research supported federal prosecution. 2 of those cases involved financial fraud. Nolan sits back in his chair. He looks at me for a long moment. You've been a librarian this whole time. I've been a research archivist, I say. There's a difference. One catalogs what's there. The other finds what was meant to stay buried. He picks up his pen. Okay, tell me what you need. What I need is Harlan Voss. Harlan is 52 and former Army intelligence, and he now does private consulting work that he describes when pressed as research facilitation. We served overlapping tours in different capacities, and he owes me a favor that has never been named out loud, which is the only kind of favor worth having. I call him from the parking garage below Crestline Tower. I need a full profile, I say. Tanner Weston, Apex Performance Gym, East Harwick. I need everything that didn't make the public record, and I need it in 72 hours. What's the context? Personal. A pause. That'll cost the favor. I know. Within 72 hours, Harlan delivers. 2 prior workplace harassment settlements, both sealed but findable if you know which courthouse to walk into. A restraining order filed 18 months ago by a woman named Petra Calder. And here's the piece that makes my jaw tighten for a different reason. A fraudulent personal training certification. The credential board that issued it has a complaint process. The complaint process has a form. The form has a submission deadline. I note all of it. I file it. I'm still at Nolan's office when my phone rings. Vivian. I let it ring, then a text. Come home, we need to talk. I drive home. She's in the kitchen when I get there, which is where she always is when she wants to control the geography of a conversation. The kitchen has 2 exits, and she's positioned herself between them. I notice this the way I notice everything now. Where is it? She says. Where's my phone, Declan? I set my bag down. Which phone? The one on the family plan or the one you bought so the family plan wouldn't know? Something crosses her face. Not guilt, exactly. More like the specific irritation of a person whose careful system has been touched. She throws the ceramic bowl that was sitting on the counter, the one we bought in Portugal, the blue one with the fish, and it hits the wall and breaks into 4 pieces. Upstairs, Sutton's door closes. Declan doesn't move. You've been going through my things. I've been reading the record. It's what I do. That is a violation of my privacy. The family iCloud account has my email on it. Your photo roll backed up automatically. That's not a violation. That's architecture. She opens her mouth, closes it, opens it again. You had no right. Vivian. I pick up my bag. We're going to have a different conversation very soon. This isn't it. She storms out. I note the time. I note everything now. The next morning, Nolan files the preliminary notice of fraudulent transfer claim against Vivian's undisclosed LLC interest. Not executed yet, positioned. A flag in the system, a marker in the record, the account flags. Her business attorney calls her within the hour. She doesn't tell me. I find out from Nolan, who CC'd me on the filing. The ceramic bowl is still in 4 pieces on the kitchen floor. I sweep it up. I put the pieces in the trash. I go to work. The smell of the county records vault is recycled air and cold metal and old binding glue, which is the smell of things that have survived long enough to be worth keeping. I have worked in this vault for 14 years, and it smells the same way it did on the first day, which is one of the things I value about it. Renata Fern stops by my archive desk around 10 with a coffee she didn't need to bring. She sets it down next to my keyboard without ceremony. She's never once made a production of the coffee, which is part of why I've accepted it for 8 years, without thinking too hard about what it means. She sets a folder next to the cup. Job postings. Caldwell County Archives. Quieter posting, better funding. New Digital Preservation Initiative. You look like a man who's been reading the same page for 3 days, she says. I've been reading the appendix. The footnotes are worse than the text. She sits in the chair across from my desk. The chair that is always there, always at the same angle. I realize, in a way I have not realized before, that the chair is at that angle because she is always the one who sits in it. A colleague from the State Archives Conference told me something interesting, she says. She's not looking at me directly, she's looking at the folder, straightening its edge against the desk. She met someone through an app called singletune.com, Values-based matching, apparently. The first thing it asks you isn't what you look like or where you live. It asks what you believe in. She said that's the whole point. You have to know what you stand for before you can know who you're standing with. I half hear it. I'm thinking about Harlan's file, about the credential board form, about the timestamp on the 34th hotel selfie. But the name lands somewhere. Singletune.com, a place that starts with what you believe in. I file it the way I file everything I'm not ready to open yet, carefully, in a place I'll be able to find it again. How's Sutton? Renata asks. Watching, I say. She nods like that's a complete answer. Because with her, it is. That night, Sutton finds me in the kitchen. He stands in the doorway for a moment, and then he asks quietly, "Are you leaving?" "I'm deciding where to go," I say. "That's different." He nods. He goes back upstairs. He takes nothing of his mother's with him. The parking lot behind the library closes at 9. I'm there until 9:40, cross-referencing Harlan's file with the Credential Board's public complaint database on my laptop, when I hear footsteps on the asphalt. I smell him before I see him. Supplement smell. The specific chemical sweetness of a man who lives inside a gym. He comes around the back of my car fast, which is the approach of someone who has thought about this moment, but not thought carefully enough about it. Tanner Weston is 36 and built the way men are built when their entire identity is load-bearing. He's taller than I expected. He gets in my face, close enough that I can see the compass rose tattoo on his left forearm, the one from the photographs, and he shoves me against the car door with both hands. "You're asking questions about me," he says. "Stop." I straighten up. My shoulder blade took the door handle. That's going to bruise. "I'm reading the record," I say. "That's my job." He shoves me again. This time he leads with his right hand, which is a mistake, because leading with your right hand against someone who spent 8 years in Army combatives is the kind of mistake that ends the conversation very quickly. I don't swing first. He swings second, a wide right hook, the kind that telegraphs itself 3 feet out. I step inside it, take his wrist, use his own momentum to put him down. 4 seconds. He hits the asphalt on his right side, wrist bent wrong under him. I stand over him. My right knuckle is split where it caught his elbow on the way down. I can feel the blood. I take out my phone and photograph him on the asphalt. I text it to Nolan with one word, "Documented." Tanner's still talking when I get in the car. I can see his mouth moving in the rearview mirror. I don't roll the window down. I have what I needed. He just gave me a documented assault, a sprained wrist, and confirmation that Vivian told him I was looking. She warned him, which means she's still protecting him, which means she hasn't understood yet what kind of man she married. I find Petra Calder through Harlan's file. The restraining order is a public record. Harwick County Courthouse, easily pulled. I call the number Harlan listed. She picks up on the second ring as if she expected it. "You're not the first person to call me about Tanner Weston," she says. Her voice is level, not angry. The voice of someone who has already done their grieving and moved on to the part where they're useful. I know, I read the file. I want to hear what the file left out. She gives me her address. East Harwick, secondhand furniture, a kitchen that smells like coffee and something herbal. She's already got a box on the table when I arrive. Printed texts, organized by date, paper-clipped in sections. "Sit down," she says. She confirms it in 20 minutes. The identical playbook, executed with the precision of a man who has done it before and will do it again. Wealthy, married woman. Financial entanglement. He'd asked her to back a business expansion that turned out to be his personal account. Manufactured emotional dependency. The texts in the box use the same language, the same escalation pattern, the same exit. When the money stopped, he stopped. He does this to everyone, she says. It's not about your wife, it never is. What is it about? She refills her coffee without looking up. Capitalization. He finds women who can fund the next version of himself. Your wife isn't special to him. She's a balance sheet. I look at the box of printed texts. Can I photograph these? I made you copies. She slides a second stack across the table. Already done. I've been waiting for someone to use them. I thank her. She says, Don't thank me. Just make sure the certification board gets the full picture. I already have the complaint form open on my phone. I drive home from Petra's apartment, and I'm 3 blocks away when Nolan calls. Vivian went to the gym, he says. I know. Deck, she took a kettlebell to his office. I pull over. The front desk staff called the police. Vivian was cited for criminal mischief. Trophies, certifications, frame photos, the glass display case they were mounted in, all of it. The incident report is already in the system. Nolan's team receives it the same afternoon. It enters the file. I sit in the car for a moment. I think about the blue ceramic bowl in 4 pieces on my kitchen floor. I think about the way she threw it. Not at me, but at the wall, at the space between us. She has always broken things that belong to both of us when she's frightened. I have always been the one who swept them up. Not this time. I drive to Ainsley Dorr's house. Grady is at work. I know this because Grady works late on Thursdays, and this is Thursday. And I have spent 14 months being a man who knows everyone's schedule, because knowing schedules is what I do. Ainsley answers the door in workout clothes. She has a laugh that arrives before the punchline, a nervous habit, a social reflex. She laughs when she sees me. Then she reads my face and stops. Declan. 14 Thursdays, I say. You told Grady you were with Vivian at the spa? You told me the same thing twice when I asked. I have the iCloud timestamps. She doesn't invite me in. She stands in the doorway and her hand goes to her left earring, and she adjusts it, then adjusts it again. I was just covering for a friend. You were covering for a lie that cost me 14 months and a medical result I can't unread. That's not friendship, that's conspiracy. She starts to cry. The specific, controlled crying of a woman who cries strategically. I wait. I have become very good at waiting. What are you going to do? She asks. Nothing, today. I leave. She knows what today means. I can see it in the way she's still holding the door when I reach my car. Not closing it, not opening it wider. Just holding it. Like a woman who understands she's standing at a threshold she can't uncross. That night, I draft the email to Grady Dorr. Every piece of evidence, every alibi, time-stamped. His wife's role in the architecture of 14 months. I sit with my finger over send, and I recognize the man at the keyboard. Not the man who believed in honest institutions, something colder, something that has started to enjoy the architecture of damage. Not the justice of it, but the craft. The way a piece fits into a piece fits into a piece. The way a record can be assembled to destroy rather than to document. I close the laptop. I sit in the dark kitchen for a long time. The click of the laptop closing sounds different this time. Less like a verdict, more like a warning to myself. Ainsley's exposure will come through the divorce proceedings, slower, not by my hand. I am an archivist, not an executioner. There's a difference. I need to keep knowing the difference. I'm alone in the archives vault at 11 p.m. 3 days later, cross-referencing Petra's documentation against the Credential Board's requirements. When I find myself with my phone in my hand and no clear memory of picking it up. I've been at this for 6 hours. The smell of cold metal and old binding glue has soaked into my shirt. I scroll through notifications. A colleague from the State Archives has joined something. I click through without thinking. Singletune.com. The first screen isn't a photo grid. It isn't a location prompt or an age range selector. It's a question. White text on a dark background. What do you believe in that you've never had to explain? I sit with that for a long time. The vault hums around me, not the fluorescent kind of hum, just the sound of a building that has been holding things carefully for a very long time. I don't sign up, I close the app. But the question stays the way a good research question stays. Not demanding an answer, just making the absence of one visible. What do I believe in that I've never had to explain? I put the phone down. I go back to the Credential Board form. I have a record to complete. The thing about Vivian confronting me at the library's public reference desk on a Tuesday afternoon is that she has never, in our marriage, understood the concept of an audience. She comes in at 2:15. I see her from the archive corridor before she sees me. She's moving fast, the way she moves when she's been circling something for hours and has finally decided to land. She's still in the clothes she was sighted in, which means She drove straight from wherever she was when the criminal mischief report was filed. I come out to the reference desk because hiding in the archive corridor is not something I do. She doesn't lower her voice. 3 patrons at the reading tables look up. The circulation assistant, a young man named Denny who has worked here for 2 years and has never seen anything louder than a misdirected phone call, goes very still. You filed against my account, she says. You went to Nolan, you flagged the LLC, you're trying to take everything. I filed a factual record with the appropriate legal authority, I say. My voice is at its normal register. That's different from taking. You're orchestrating a campaign against my life, Declan. You are systematically... I'm reading the record, I say. I say it the way I'd say it to a patron who'd asked about a catalog entry. Flat, informational. That's what I do. She sweeps the reference display off the counter. Pamphlets scatter across the floor, community programs, reading lists, county services. Denny takes a step back. One of the reading table patrons has their phone out. Security arrives in 90 seconds. 2 of them. They're gentle with her, which is more than she deserves and exactly what the situation requires. She goes out still talking, still explaining, still building her case to an audience that has already made up its mind. The incident is logged. It enters the file. Renata is the one who picks up the scattered pamphlets from the floor. She doesn't say anything about what just happened. She straightens the display, sets the last pamphlet in its slot, and looks at me. I realize I have not once in 8 years seen her flinch at anything. Not at difficult patrons, not at budget cuts, not at the particular institutional chaos that descends on a county library every 3 years when the administration changes. She absorbs it and continues, which is a specific kind of strength that looks like calm, but isn't. I file it the way I file everything important, carefully in a place I'll be able to find it again. So, the brilliant move. Nolan asks me on a Wednesday morning what I actually want to accomplish. Not legally, he knows the legal strategy. He means, what do I want the outcome to look like? I want the record to be complete, I say. That's not an outcome. That's a philosophy. Then I want the institution to do its job. He looks at me. Which institution? Here's the thing about Tanner Weston. He's not just a personal trainer who owns a gym. He's a franchise operator. Apex Performance is licensed through Pinnacle Fitness brand, a mid-sized national franchisor with 42 locations and a morality clause in every franchise agreement. Standard language, the kind that gets inserted and forgotten until it's needed. The franchise reputation is the brand. The brand is the revenue. The revenue is the thing Pinnacle protects above everything else. And Pinnacle has a compliance board. And the compliance board has an HR function. And the HR function has, as of this Wednesday morning, received a time-stamped dossier. I compile it myself. Vivian's texts, sourced from the burner Sutton found. The gym lobby recording. Public space, legal, audio only. Tanner's voice clearly audible, making promises about the investment structure that have no basis in the franchise agreement. Petra's documentation, the texts, the pattern, the restraining order. The 2 prior harassment settlements, which Harlan located and which are a matter of public record even if they're sealed, because the case numbers are public even when the contents aren't. And a compliance board can subpoena what I cannot. The fraudulent certification complaint, already filed with the credential board and assigned a case number. I present it not to Vivian, not to Tanner, to Pinnacle's HR compliance board, with a cover letter that reads like an archival finding aid. Organized, sourced, footnoted, no emotional language, no accusations. Just the record, assembled in the order a reasonable institution would need to review it. Tanner Weston is suspended pending investigation before he knows the file exists. Nolan reads the submission when I show it to him. He's quiet for a moment. You didn't attack him, he says. You just handed the institution exactly what it needed to do its job. That's what records are for. Nolan almost smiles. It's the closest he gets. Tanner finds out about the suspension at 10 a.m. He calls Vivian. I know this because Vivian calls me at 10:17 and she is not quiet. You destroyed him. You went to his employer. You filed against my account. She stops. Starts again. This is vindictive, Declan. This is a targeted campaign. You funded his business with $34,000 from a joint account you never disclosed. I filed a factual record with the institution responsible for his certification. Those are two different sentences. I want you to withdraw it. All of it. I'm sure you do. I'm serious. I will. Vivian. I let the line go quiet for a moment. I realized something. You're not a serious person. I hang up. The aftermath of saying that is very quiet. I'm in my car in the library parking lot, and the engine is off, and the morning is gray and cold. I said it flat, the way you'd say it about a catalog entry that doesn't meet acquisition criteria. Not an insult, a verdict, a reclassification. She has been moved to a different section of the record, one I don't consult anymore. My hands are steady on the wheel. That evening, Sutton finds his mother's replacement burner. She bought another one, same model, same drawer, and reads enough to understand the full scope. He brings it to my desk. He sets it down, face down, the same way he set down the first one. The weight of it is wrong again. Too heavy for what it is. Vivian comes into the study when she realizes it's gone. She screams at Sutton. She uses the word betrayal. She says he's taking his father's side, as if this is a geometry problem with sides rather than a record with facts. Sutton says, "You did that part yourself." I put my hand on his shoulder. I nearly say something soft and parental and true. I don't. I don't have to. He already knows. Nolan executes the formal fraudulent transfer claim the next morning. Vivian's undisclosed LLC account is frozen. Her business attorney, a sharp woman named Delacroix, who I've always respected for her precision, reviews the filing and withdraws from the case. When the undisclosed account is entered into evidence, Delacroix's own exposure becomes a question she's not willing to answer. Vivian is left shopping for new representation with frozen assets and a criminal mischief citation on her record. I'm in the archive break room with Renata when Nolan texts me the confirmation. I read it. I put my phone down. Good news or complicated news? Renata asks. She's holding her coffee in both hands, the way she always does when the building is cold, which is always. Both, I say. Simultaneously. She nods. She doesn't ask which is which. That's the thing about Renata. She understands that some things are both at once and that asking which one is dominant is a category error. I looked up that app, I say. Singletune.com. The one your colleague mentioned? She's quiet for a moment. Did you? First question it asks. What do you believe in that you've never had to explain? I sat with that for a while. She looks at her coffee. I actually completed the assessment, she says. After my divorce, 2 years ago, I didn't know she'd been divorced. I realized I didn't know because I never asked, and I never asked because I was married, and asking felt like a door I shouldn't open. What did it ask you, I say? That question and then about 40 others. What you've been through. What you want from the next part of your life. What you won't compromise on. She turns her coffee cup in her hands. First question, I wrote. That a person's word is the only currency that doesn't devalue. I'm quiet for a moment. The break room smells like old coffee and the particular dust of a building that has held too many things for too long. What did it match you with, I ask? She smiles. Not a performance of a smile. The real kind, the kind that arrives before the person decides to show it. Mostly people who believe in the same things I do, which turns out to be rarer than you'd think. I don't look away from her when she says it. She doesn't look away from me either. That night, Tanner Weston shows up at Ashford House. It's 9:40. I'm in the study when the doorbell rings. I open the door, and he's standing on the porch in a jacket that's too light for the weather, and when he shifts his weight, the jacket opens, and I see the handle of a hunting knife clipped to his belt. Not drawn, but visible. The move of a man who wants to be seen as someone who has options. He looks worse than he did in the parking lot. The suspension has done something to his face. The specific deflation of a man whose entire identity was load-bearing, and the load has been removed. "Withdraw the filing," he says. I look at him. I look at the knife. I look back at him. "You drove to a man's house with a blade in your jacket to ask him to stop telling the truth," I say. "That's the biography of a coward." Upstairs, I can hear Sutton moving. I hear him go to his room. I hear the quiet sounds of a 16-year-old boy doing exactly what I would do in his position. Tanner takes a step toward me. "I'm not asking again." "You weren't asking the first time," I say. "You were threatening. There's a difference." 2 patrol cars arrive in 4 minutes. Sutton called 911 from his room. The moment he saw Tanner's car in the driveway, he looked out his window, recognized the car from a photo in my file that he absolutely was not supposed to have seen and that I am absolutely not going to address right now. The officers are thorough. They find the knife. They cite Tanner for criminal threatening. They write the incident report with the specific, unhurried patience of people who have done this before and know that the paperwork matters more than the drama. I give my statement on the porch. My knuckle from the parking lot altercation is still slightly swollen. The officer notes it. It goes in the report. Tanner's franchise suspension becomes termination within 48 hours. The Credential Board complaint is assigned an expedited review. Apex Performance closes for restructuring. The sign goes up in the window. The kind of sign that everyone in the neighborhood understands means something different from what it says. The file is complete. Vivian calls Ainsley that night. I know this because Ainsley's house is 3 blocks from the library, and Grady Dorr calls me the next morning. He says, "I heard some things last night." I say, "I'm sorry." He says, "Don't be. I needed to hear them." A pause. She was screaming loud enough that I could hear it from the driveway when I got home. Didn't even have to go inside. Ainsley had to explain what she'd covered for. The Thursdays, the spa alibi, the 14 months of small, careful lies that she told herself were loyalty, and that were, in fact, just architecture. Grady left the house that night with a bag. He's at the Meridian Inn, he tells me. He doesn't ask me for anything. He just wanted me to know. "Decent man," Nolan says when I tell him. "Didn't deserve it." "No," I say. "He didn't. Neither did I. But here we are." Vivian's exposure arrived, not by my hand, but by her own volume. That's the thing about people who believe they can control the record. Eventually, they get loud enough that the record writes itself. The Meridian Gates parking structure is 4 levels of concrete and bad lighting and the particular echo of a place designed for cars, not people. I'm on level 2 when Vivian cuts me off at the stairwell exit. She's been waiting. She must have followed me in from the street, which means she's been watching the house, which means something in her is broken in a way that I hadn't fully accounted for. She grabs my arm, both hands, her nails through my jacket sleeve. I stop. I don't pull away. I wait because I have learned that waiting is the most precise tool I have. She says everything she's been saving, all of it. The accusations and the justifications and the reframings and the version of events in which she is the protagonist of a story about a man who was never present enough, never exciting enough, never willing to meet her where she was. She builds the case the way she always builds cases, from the conclusion backward, selecting the evidence that supports the verdict she's already reached. I let her finish. The parking structure echoes her back to herself. I wonder if she can hear it. "Are you done?" I ask. She is not. She starts again, different angle. I listen to this version too. It's shorter. She's running out of material. Then I walk to my car. She follows, still talking. I get in. I lock the door. The engine starts. She's standing at the driver's side window, palm flat on the glass, still saying something I can no longer hear. I drive to the gate. The gate opens on my transponder. In the rearview mirror, she's still in the structure, still talking, still making her case to the concrete and the bad lighting and the empty space where I used to be. The gate closes behind me. I drive. I don't know where I'm going yet. I know it's forward. That's enough. The thing about the walkout is that it's not dramatic. It's not a statement. It's just the moment when the distance between where you are and where you need to be becomes too obvious to ignore, and you close it. I close it. The apartment on Fenwick Street is one room and a kitchen and a window that faces the building across the street, which is a plain brick building that holds its light steady through the evening, in a way I find unexpectedly comforting. The smell is cold air and old paper, which is the smell of a place that hasn't been lived in yet, but is ready to be. I have one box. I put it on the table. I don't unpack it yet. I sit at the table, and I take the thermal paper out of my coat pocket. It's cold now, fully cold, the warmth from the clinic long gone. I unfold it and I read it again, not because I need to, but because I am a man who reads the primary source before he files it. The result is the same as it was in the plastic chair at Belmont Medical Park. The math still doesn't close. But the record is complete now, and the record is what matters. I fold it once. I put it in the box. I open my laptop. The folder labeled "The Record" is still on the desktop. I move it to the archive drive, the external one encrypted, the one I use for everything I need to keep and never need to look at again. I eject the drive. I put it in the box. The click of the laptop closing in this room sounds different. Not a verdict, not a warning. Something quieter. The sound of a man who has finished reading a very long, very damaging document and has set it down, and is now, for the first time in 14 months, sitting in a room where everything is exactly what it claims to be. My phone is on the table. I pick it up. I open singletune.com. The first screen is still there. White text, dark background. The question hasn't changed. What do you believe in that you've never had to explain? I sit with it. The building across the street holds its light steady. I type, that the record is the record. That what's buried doesn't stay buried. That a person's word is the only currency that doesn't devalue. I hit continue. The second question loads. Then the third. I answer each one the way I'd answer a research question, carefully, without drama, noting what's actually there rather than what I wish were there. It takes 40 minutes. When I finish, the screen says, "We'll find you someone who believes in the same things." I close the app. I don't know what it will find. I know what Renata wrote, and I know that a person's word is the only currency that doesn't devalue. And I know that she has brought me coffee for 8 years without ever asking for anything in return. And I know that I have never once, in 8 years, seen her flinch. I know what I believe in. I know where to find it. Outside, the building across the street holds its light steady in the dark. Ordinary light, the kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that's just there when you need it. I leave the box on the table. I go to the window. I stand there for a while looking at the light. A library is the only honest institution left. Everything in it is exactly what it claims to be. I used to believe that about my marriage, too. I believe it about myself now instead. That's not nothing. That's the whole point.